This is for anyone who loves the work that they do, but would still like to earn more. You might be like Paul Jourdain, pro race car driver who reached out to me on Instagram saying he gets paid to race cars and he loves it, but he'd like to earn more. And he's interested in real estate because he knows that it's made the most millionaires of any other profession. So he met up with me for coffee and asked me how to flip homes. I'm coming from experience where I've bought 7 houses this year alone in 2024, made as much as $125,000 on one single deal, and my rental portfolio currently brings in $33,000 per month and $12,000 net.
Wow, that's really interesting. You grew up in, or you were born in Mexico City, and you moved when you were 9 to San Antonio. Got it. Why did your family move to San Antonio?
So my dad originally is from Belgium, moved to Mexico when he was very young, and then he started a business over there. I was born in racing. And then, he sold his business in 2004, I believe it was. And part of the deal was he couldn't promote races anymore for so many years. So we moved to the U.S. and we were going to build a racetrack here, and there were a racing series. We did many different things. We had a restaurant, but we just ended up staying here.
Do you still have a restaurant?
No, not anymore.
Okay. And did he start a racing company? I saw he actually looks like maybe you guys own your own team.
Yeah, so my dad was married twice, so I'm from the second marriage. So I have an older brother and an older sister. My older brother, Michel, he owns the racing team I drive for, Paul Jourdain. But my dad he was a race car driver, but the racing in Mexico, it wasn't as organized. So he started promoting his own races so he could race. But it ended up to the point where he couldn't drive and be the boss of the series. So he had to choose which one and ended up becoming a promoter for many, many years. And then that's been basically the family business ever since.
Gotcha. That's kind of funny. You mentioned you can't drive and be the boss, because the racing I do is there's like 14 Genettas. It's a British race car.
Yeah.
And so
It's a great car.
12 of the cars are fielded by the person who put it on the race series.
Really?
Yeah. So there was an incident with me, because I'm not part of them.
Yeah.
But they were fair with the rules.
Yeah.
But you can see how maybe they wouldn't be. They get away with it.
No, yes, and it's very funny. In most racing, I'm not gonna say most racing series, but in a lot of racing series, it's I'm not gonna call it normal, but it happens a lot where the racing promoter has a team. My dad just didn't want to be a driver and promoter.
Got it.
For example, my brother is now partners with my dad, so my brother owns the team I drive for and is the director of the series.
Yeah.
So yes, it's tough because with me, they have to be even more strict than other people so that they can show that they're being fair. So I got a penalty in the last race. I felt like it was a little bit harsh, but I understand. A lot of times they have to be very hard on myself, because if they're a little bit lean, it can look like, just exactly favoritism. So I think that's correct, and you have to be harder, on your own team.
Yeah. So, tell me about your car. I know you said it was like similar to the TA. You said TA2 car?
Yeah. So it's Trans Am 2s.
Yep.
So it's built by Howe. It's a 2-frame chassis. It's based on a Mercedes A-Class, the body. Has a...
Do they sell that in the U.S. or is that only in Mexico?
The TA2 cars.
The A-Class.
So our cars...
Like the street car.
Oh, the street car? No, I believe they sell it here in the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah, they sell it here in the U.S. as well. But it has a 500 horsepower, paddle shifting, traction control on it, big brakes. It's a really, really good race car. Probably the best we have in Mexico. It's just very difficult to drive, but it's a lot of fun.
What makes it difficult? I was curious. You said it was nervous feeling.
Yes, it's has a lot of power and a lot of torque for I think the tire that we put on the car, and we did it on purpose, so they're long-lasting tires. But it's just once the tires start going away and dropping off, it's a very difficult car to drive. Mm-hmm. At least probably one of the most difficult cars I've driven in my life. But it's very very rewarding, a lot of fun.
So I think this is a question a lot of people would want to know is, how did you start? You start in karts?
Yes, I started karting when I moved to the U.S. right away. My dad, for my birthday, bought me a go-kart. I had just turned 9, and I started there, and I just fell in love with it.
Where did you progress after go-karts?
So after go-karts, my family didn't have the money to do big karting, because I don't know if people know, but even though that's where I recommend racing, starting off in karting can be very, very expensive. It can, doing it professionally in the Pro Series can cost up like $150,000. Some people spend even more. There's people that spend $300,000-$400,000 a year.
Yeah.
Karting. So obviously we didn't have that kind of money for go-karting, because it's also very difficult to find like sponsor, in go-karting. So after karts, I raced here locally in New Braunfels, and then some of the local tracks in Texas. I went to Formula cars. So I started doing some Formula cars on and off, depending on the sponsorships. Same thing, it's very difficult to do it.
Wait, how did you get sponsored in a Formula car?
Yes. So because my family's been doing it for a long time, my brother did IndyCar, and my dad.
Oh, he did?
Yes. No way. Won 2 IndyCar races.
Really?
Yes, and fought for the championship.
Which ones?
He won in Montreal and in Milwaukee.
Okay.
Yeah. So he did the IndyCar. So my family is well known in racing in Mexico. Yeah. So I'm very thankful for that. It's been a huge help for me, because it's helped between contacts and different things, sponsors. My first ever sponsor was Herdes, which was my brother's IndyCar sponsor many, many years ago. But the family, and a guy named Enrique Hernandez Pons called me out with my first race. And then from there, a couple teams every now and then when they needed a driver, I would fill in. But it was difficult because I would drive on old tires and everything, because
lower budget.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's how it started. Then in 2016, the plan was to do full season in Formula cars. I had a little bit of sponsorship and everything, but I ended up doing like half of the year.
Got it.
Money's so difficult, And then that same year, I started racing semi-trucks.
Wait, what?
Yes.
What?
Yes. So we have in Mexico a racing semi-truck championship. Yes.
See,
yes.
I've seen those YouTube videos or like Instagram clips of semi-trucks racing around a track.
Yes, and you would not believe how much fun they are. Yes. So you have no idea. It's so much fun, but also it's much easier because it's such a large industry that there's a lot more sponsors, and it's like the fans' favorite series because of the contacts, the level of racing, the level of drivers. There's a lot of pro drivers in Mexico. I think I would say most of the drivers in that series, Mexico, make money driving there.
Really?
Yes.
See, it's easier to make money racing the semi-truck than doing like a Formula car.
Oh, yes, by far. Because that's at least in Supercopa, the top 2 series are the GT cars and the semi-trucks. Right now I'm doing both. But yes, it's much easier because Formula cars, not a lot of people watch them, especially like the junior formulas. They don't have the same TV, it's not as easy, But with the semi-trucks, you got very good TV. There's a lot of brands involved. So I started racing there, and did well. And then in 2021, I was a factory driver for Freightliner in Mexico. Yes, and in 2022, I won the championship. And then I've been just continuing there, and then also racing the GT cars.
Okay. So what modifications do they do to the semi-trucks in order to race them? Because I know on a car, you'd have to put in a roll cage. And
yes.
Even your car, it looks like a Mercedes, but it is nothing like the street car.
Yeah, the race car, the GTM car that I drive is 100% pure race car. Has nothing of a street car. The semi truck, everything like the chassis underneath, it's a truck chassis, like a semi truck.
So it's exactly like the truck.
Very, very close.
The
chassis, the gearbox, the brakes are from a larger semi truck, so it brakes amazing, much better than any race car you've ever driven. Yes, by far.
Does it have air brakes?
No. It's regular brakes. It has 3 tires, everything, but it has a racing engine. It has a roll cage, racing seat. The whole body is fiberglass, so it makes it much lighter. So it's very much a racing truck.
Yeah, so they're getting a low center of gravity because the cab is just like fiberglass or
exactly.
But it has a roll cage, right?
Yes, it has a roll cage.
Got it.
Thankfully, we've never flipped one, but
yeah, that is so cool.
It's amazing, yes.
All right, so you did that. Why did you stop doing that?
I haven't stopped.
Oh, you still?
Yeah, no, I'm still
racing 2 series.
Yes, I do both series in the same weekend. So yeah, Supercopa, we have 4 series. It's the main ones, which is the GTM and the semi trucks, and then we have a junior Formula series to get started, and racing bikes.
Got it.
So it's a little bit for like families they can see everything, you know.
Okay.
So I jump in between one another. I finish practicing in the GTM and I run and jump in the truck. I finish practicing in the truck and then I have the practice in the GTM back and forth.
So how long are your races?
The GTM races are about 15 minutes long,
Okay.
and then the semi truck's about half an hour.
Okay. What do you do to make sure your energy level stays up?
During the week, I try to eat properly, hydrate properly, and then during the race weekend, even more. Some protein bars, make sure I'm always hydrated. The cars are, both the truck and the car are very, very hot.
Yeah.
So just make sure you're drinking a lot, electrolytes, and
I know my car gets like 140 Fahrenheit inside.
yes, for
If I'm
me,
racing it over 20 minutes.
yes, for me in Celsius, it's like 60 Celsius, which I believe is around there.
Similar.
Yeah, similar.
That's hot.
Very hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go to some races like in Merida where it's very, very humid and hot, and it's a nightmare. You want to die while you're in there.
Well, I got one more question, and then we met because we, met on Instagram. I know you had a couple questions about real estate, so would love if you asked me any questions you had about that. But on the sponsor, you said your brother had an IndyCar sponsor. What was that again?
So he had a couple different ones. Herdes, which is Mexico's largest like salsa company.
Oh, salsa company.
Yeah. They and other things. They sell mayonnaise and different things.
So for Ares, and I know you can't speak for them, but I'm curious what you think. Do you think that they sell more salsa by having a logo on a car, like for your Formula 4 car, or is it just like a passion that they want to support?
I think it was both. The president at the time, now vice president, he's a huge racer, so that's one thing. But also, it's a great marketing tool because for a salsa company at the time wasn't as big in Mexico. Right now, you can go to any HEV here in the US and you'll find that salsa.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, Herdes. Yeah, really good one. Yes. So at the time, it wasn't as big, so it was a great way to promote their salsa and the other brands here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And also support Mexican drivers in the United States. They also had the largest Mexican team at the time in Mexico for racing. So they were getting a lot of exposure, and it's tax deductible, it's marketing, so it's a form of marketing that it's also very enjoyable. You get to bring in clients and friends and everything to the track. So there's many ways to do it.
Yeah.
But it depends on the racing series that you do it,
Right.
Doing the Skip Barber racing series, well, it's a great series to learn in. Can't really take a sponsor there, There's no TV, there's no corporate hospitality, so it's much easier to find a larger sponsor in a series that you can sell,
right? So a lot of people, they see my content on Instagram and they say, "Give me a chance, sponsor me, and I will be a great driver."
Yeah,
and I want to help them out, but my company is a software company.
Yeah.
And if I sponsor somebody to go Formula 4, I am not going to sell any more software by doing that. And so I just can't do that.
Exactly.
So I try to teach them, hey, you can earn your own money, especially if they're over 21 and they have never even been in a kart or a car. They're going to have a big learning curve, right?
Of course.
I've paid thousands of dollars to learn, of course, schools and coaches and stuff. So I try to teach them that way where it's maybe not as fast path for them to get in a car, but at least it's like a reliable one, right? Where they could earn their own money through real estate investing and do that.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious on the sponsorship side because I would also love to get a sponsor, but I know like there's got to be a viable business case of they're gonna sell some more stuff in order to be able to sponsor. So you got to get in a series that has more eyeballs. Or
exactly. In my case, I was very lucky. Like I said, and I that's why I loved your content. Because you're really teaching people how they can do this without having to go out and grind looking for sponsors. And like I said, to start off in racing, if you find a sponsor, it's going to be a friend or a family member or, a friend of a friend or something like that, because typically the starting series have no viewers.
Yeah. Well, you also knew what you were doing. I started late. I didn't get in a car until I was 32.
Yes. No, and I had a family that's been in the business for all their lives. I went to my first race before I was one pro. Right. So, I grew up in a family that was in the industry already. We had contacts. We owned a racing series, so we knew the teams. We knew some sponsors. racing in Mexico is way more affordable than the U.S.
Why is that?
Labor. So track rentals, everything. It's like, for example, I don't know how much it costs. Rent Coda out, it's like $50,000
A day.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. To race, to pay the fee to go practice in Querétaro, which is one of the track that we have with, is like $500 a day. You know, it's like, so the cost of racing is much cheaper. Tracks are, Mexico's much smaller, travel's not as much. The cost of labor, the mechanics is cheaper. You know, the cars are typically a little bit less expensive. We designed our cars to that if you crash them, it's not as expensive as crashing a Porsche GT3 Cup. You know?
Oh, yeah.
So it's, for many different reasons, it's a lot more affordable.
Yep.
It can still be very expensive, though, for the regular person, you know? But yes, I was very lucky thanks to my family. And then once I was able to get into a series where actually I could actually go out and sell sponsors, I worked really hard and I was able to accomplish that. And now,
Right. That's work itself.
Yes. A lot of work had to go into it.
Hey guys, if you know you want to quit your job in the next 3 months, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast because we've got some incredible frameworks with step-by-step instruction that you're not going to want to miss. Also, leave us a rating and review to let us know your favorite parts and why you want to get financial freedom.
So do you remember which of my videos you might have seen first?
Yeah, so I was scrolling through Instagram, and I don't know how the algorithm got me to one of your videos. I think it was like, I went to one of the Explore videos, and then from there, I eventually landed on one of them that you were talking about sponsorship.
Okay.
In racing. First, I hadn't seen nothing about the real estate
Maybe
part.
there's an Xfinity driver who reached out to me.
That one.
And that was a good learning moment for me.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I'm not able to sponsor him. I'm trying to sponsor myself.
Yes, of
and
course.
teach others along the way. But I did get to ask him, was like, what are the costs like? How does this work for you? Yeah.
Yes,
that was interesting.
That was the first video I saw. Now that you mentioned it, it was the Xfinity video, and I was very curious because my brother raced in the Xfinity. So the cost, and I have friends in NASCAR and everything. So I was curious.
I know different drivers and teams have different arrangements. Do you remember if what I said was similar to what you thought your brother might have done?
I think the budget you talked about was on the very low end.
Yeah.
Yes, on the very low end. To drive, I think, a front-end Xfinity car, one that can fight for the win, you're looking at very minimum $200,000.
Yes. So they're all the same cars. So what does the bigger budget buy you that gives you a better chance?
More engineers, more data, better, newer cars. Because, they might be the same type of cars, but a guy that, is doing it for $80,000 a race, $90,000, if he has one car, couple of mechanics, they come in a small trailer,
Right.
They're really stretching every single dollar out. The other guys are throwing tires like crazy, have brand new engines, brand new chassis, the best engineers, the best mechanics. They do time in the simulators. They do a lot of different things. So it's a lot more expensive. But I was curious because I would like to do the Coda race either in a truck or an Xfinity. So I was curious. And then you started talking about the real estate. And real estate is something that I've always been very curious about and something that I've always enjoyed. Between me and my sister is very into remodeling houses. With one of my best friends, I had been talking about starting something else, because I'm very lucky. I do what I love for a living. But I'm not getting rich off of driving race cars. We got the drivers that are getting rich are in Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR. That's about it.
Like very hard to do.
Exactly. Everybody else that makes money racing, it's like any other job. You make some money, but you're not getting rich.
You're in the very far few drivers that could actually make money while driving.
Yes, and I'm very lucky about it. Lucky for it, but you never know how long that's gonna last, man. And like I said, I'm not with what I'm making. I'm not gonna retire and be rich. So I want to do something else. I want to continue what I'm doing, but I want to continue with something else on my free time. And I think real estate's the best thing. It's I think there's most of the millionaires in the world have gone there through real estate.
I've heard that a few times.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you started talking about it, I went into your profile, started looking at all your videos, and then I saw you were in Austin, you like racing, and so I was like, I have to reach out to this guy for sure, So that's when I...
Yeah, so quick recap on that real estate. I've been an investor for 8 years, and I started because I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And
I've heard about that book. They say it's really good.
Yeah, so many people have read that. it doesn't tell you exactly how to do it though, but it explains like why real estate is good. And so I went to a meetup. They told me to find a good deal, I have to look for rundown homes. And so you ask 300 rundown homeowners if they want to sell their house, and somebody's like, oh yeah, I'm having some financial trouble, or oh, I need to go move states, but my house isn't in a good shape to sell on the market. So you get a good deal, right? You offer them a price, and it's a good deal, and then you fix it up. That creates value. Let's say you spend $75,000 to fix it up. That may increase the value of the house by $150,000. So you can see how you can make money if you are buying a rundown house, fixing it up, etc. Yeah. So, and of course you could flip it, or I like to actually keep it as a rental. So that way, as time goes on, that house just keeps appreciating. And if you buy it at the right price, the tenant can totally pay for that mortgage.
Yeah.
And then you could also get all your money back out with like a refinance. So basically you take that $300K or whatever and go do it again on another house. So I just kept building my rental portfolio that way. Yeah. And it's called the BRRRR strategy. You might have heard that as well, called buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. No, it makes a lot of sense. And I had never thought about it that way. I had always thought about it, you buy the house, fix it up, and then sell it and make some money, and then do it again and again and again and again. But I saw it on your video. It's like you have to pay so much in property tax. I mean, in the taxes when you sell it. So
yes, if you're in the higher income bracket, of course, it gets a bigger chunk.
Exactly.
So up to, in Texas, we don't have state tax, but in some states, like especially if you're in California, you might be in the 37% federal tax bracket, and then California has like another 11%, right? Yeah, so if you were going to make $100,000, you'd lose like $55,000 to taxes.
Yeah, no, it's really.
So I'd rather just pull my money back out, rent it, let it appreciate.
50, 20, 30 years, you're going to own 30 houses,
It would be paid off.
Yes, paid off by then, and then you have all that equity,
Right.
And if you ever one day wanted to sell all of them, you have.
And I'll tell you what,
it
looks like appreciation is like a slow play.
Yeah.
But I had 9 rentals for like 5 years in Indianapolis, and the average price was like $150,000. Like it wasn't like really expensive real estate, but collectively they all appreciated $1 million in 5 years, right? And so that's higher than the average of Indianapolis, but I did it in neighborhoods where it was on the up and up, right? So they had more appreciation than normal. And so I looked at that and I was like, I wasn't even paying attention. But so that's like another benefit is that appreciation.
Right, and it's a very safe way of investing, I think, because obviously, I mean, the stock market is a great place. People who know about it know how to properly invest is good. But I've always been afraid that there's a lot of risk. And obviously with houses there is, but it's something that's tangible, it's never going to 100% lose your money, even if you lost a little bit. In most cases, it always appreciates.
Right.
So
I guess for somebody like yourself who's interested, what questions do you have?
So first of all, something that I've been interested in, have you ever thought about, for example, how do you call it? I forgot the name of the foreclosure house.
Okay.
Have you ever invested in those or no?
I personally have not, but I've been to the auction. And so the way the auctions work is in Texas, if you don't pay your mortgage, they may sell it off like within 30 days. It's a very fast process. Some states it takes longer, but Texas, it could happen very quickly.
Yes.
And so once a month, they'll sit outside the courthouse and all these investors like bring their lawn chairs, and one house at a time, they'll be like, who wants to bid on this house? And you have to come with a cashier's check. So you have to have some money, your own or a money partner, and then you come with that cashier's check. And if you win the bid, then the house is yours.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Okay.
So I know there's a bidding process. So sometimes it gets bid up too much.
Yeah.
So you would have had to go like do a little homework before that date to know
and the house and
how much you think you could pay for that house.
Yes.
Yeah. So I usually don't recommend that for a beginner, and I myself haven't done it, but I've gone.
Yeah.
But so could be, I know people have gotten great deals out.
Yeah, because I have a friend that does it, like that, and she says it can be great deal because a lot of times you can get a house that is in pretty decent shape. There's a lot of risk from what I've read, and
because you don't get to go in.
yes, but I've read that there's other websites that you can get foreclosure house that you can actually visit, things like that. I don't know too much about it, but I've read, or seen videos about it.
Yep.
So it's something I'm investigating. But I like also, I think that's the best way to renovate a house,
Yeah.
So my plan is right now to at least start off with a house. I have a friend that one of my best friends that wants to join with this, and my sister. And then each one with our free time and buy a house, maybe that doesn't need too much work, but some work, and then start off slow, do it the first time, and from there slowly start doing it,
For me, I'm just a big learner by doing it. I can listen to content, but I never really get a good grasp of it until I do it. So I love that you're excited and doing this with your sister. There's also, they post the houses that are going to be auctioned off ahead of time.
Really?
So you could even go knock on their door and see if someone's inside.
Yeah.
And you could even make them an offer before the auction happens.
Really? Yeah, because if not, they're going to lose the house.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's also a good strategy.
Yes. It's not about strategy. Yeah, so there's different, I think, ways to do it. I like your strategy, the way you do it for, rentals.
Yeah.
Does it ever happen, for example, when you start renting out the houses that you don't have any positive equity? Or not equity, that, with what they're paying you with the rental, the mortgage is still higher, because, for example, I have friends that rent their apartments or things like that, and it's they're still in the negative,
Right.
Because for some reason they couldn't rent it as high as all the expenses of the apartment or the house. So that's something I've been afraid about.
Yeah. So I do all my investing in Indianapolis because it's actually a pretty good market for cash flow.
Okay.
But if I go too expensive, there's not a market there for renters. Not a lot of people will pay that much in rent in Indianapolis. So I'll give you a couple examples. When I decide, have you heard of the 1% rule?
I saw something about it in your video, but I don't know.
There's a quick way to see if the house will cash flow. And let's say in perfect condition, after repair value is $200,000. There's houses in San Antonio where that's the case. Then you want to go on Zillow to see what in that neighborhood is being marketed for rent. And you want to see that is being marketed for $2,000 a month, which is 1% of the after repair value. So if you see houses that are being marketed for rent for $2,000 a month, and that house is worth $200,000 in perfect condition, then that house would cash flow. So it's a quick check. You can see if it will cash flow or not.
Okay, that's a good.
Now in Indianapolis,
why did you choose Indianapolis?
well, I used to live there.
I love Indianapolis.
Oh, you do?
Yes, no, I go every year. Yes, we see the Speedway.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been to the Indy 500.
Oh yeah.
It's the most amazing event
There really
in
is.
the world. I was able to go in 2012 when my brother did.
That's amazing.
The craziest event in the world, and I go every year to PRI, and
Yeah, it's a big convention.
Yes.
The biggest convention for
for
professional racers across the country and the world, I guess.
yes, in the world.
Yeah.
So yes, we go every year, and it's a really cool place.
I remember I went to PRI before I really knew anything about racing, and there was a transmission worth $20,000.
Oh yeah, the one in our car is 25.
Yeah. But at the time, it was shocking.
Yeah. No.
But it's built so it can withstand all the abuse. And
Yeah, it's tough to break. We haven't broken one. You have to do maintenance on it, but we've never broken it.
the conclusion to making sure a house can cash flow was I found a really good deal on a house that I knew was worth $425,000. But I'm going to have to sell it because nobody will rent the house for $4,000.
Yeah.
People in Indianapolis, they just don't spend that much on rent.
Yeah.
They might buy a house for that much, but they will not rent a house.
Yeah.
Here in Austin, people would spend that much on rent, but the house probably be worth $1 million, so it still wouldn't cash flow. So you just have to look on what the house is worth and who's renting it, do the 1% rule to see if it'll cash flow.
So depending on the house, you would either flip it and sell it, or you might keep it as a rental if it can cash flow.
Right. So the sweet spot for me in Indianapolis is about house worth $180,000 that I can rent for $1,800 a month.
Okay. That's after renovation.
That's what I like, because that's about the nicest house that you could cash flow with renting.
Okay.
And I want to go as nice as possible while still cash flowing. So that way, hopefully the resident is easier to work with. They'll have a higher credit score. They'll have more income. They'll take better care of it. And as a self-manager, I want to minimize the aggravation of managing.
And do you ever do just, do you only do the rental, the burst strategy, or do you ever try to flip a house and just sell it?
I always try to do the burst strategy because I want that long-term appreciation. But if it won't cash flow or if it won't get rented, then I have sold a few houses because they were just too expensive and they would not rent at the price I needed them to rent for.
But you still make some money when you sell.
I still made some money for sure, but I wasn't able to keep it.
And I saw the video about that $400,000 house that you, I think, bought for $100 and something.
Yeah.
It was like $100,000, chains.
Right.
On average, how much does the value go up from a house that you buy it, fix it up, and then what's the value?
Yeah. Well, that one I bought for $160. I'd fix it up for $125, so I was $285 all in, and then it appraised for $425, but nobody would rent it for $4,000. So that was like just another test I did because I really wanted to keep it, but I just listed it for sale.
Yeah, but you're gonna make probably like $100,000 from that house.
Yeah. So there'll be some transaction fees, like my realtor will make 4% on the transaction. So that's honestly why I try never to sell stuff, is because there's always this transaction fee to eat away at your profits.
Okay.
But yeah, I should end up making, and now that I've held it for a year, it will no longer be taxed at that 44% tax rate, because now it's long-term capital gains, which I think is like 20%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you hold it over a year, then you can tax it as long-term instead of regular income. What do you think are your next step? You and your sister are going to go to the auction?
So right now, still want to do a little bit more research on videos and things like that. But yeah, maybe go to an auction. I know you have an app that helps for all that kind of stuff. So maybe obviously look into it, because I think it's a very useful tool. And then start looking at houses, doing a lot of research, which could be a potential house that we could flip and make some money on it, or rent and do the burst strategy, or something. And then from there, start off, like I said, I don't want to start off with a house that I need to invest $100,000. But probably once we find a house that we like and we think we can renovate it for not so much money, start off with that one.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the next couple of months.
If you do check out the app, there's a 7-day trial. People use that for data.
Yeah.
So if they're not going to go to the foreclosure auction, they can find which houses might be willing to sell, and they market to them with direct mail and calling to see if they want to sell their house. So that's what that is.
Okay.
We have like a free community that meets weekly, and you can always text me as well if you have questions or not. Those are 2 resources for you.
Yeah.
So
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
yeah, it was awesome. I'd love to continue to be a resource.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.